Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Rob Cowan from AFM Radio. We got Nick Yvette's, one of the half of Event Horizon.
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
Unfortunately, Marty is having technical problems, and we can't do the show without Marty. It just is too much for one person to do. So we're going to rack a classic here. We will tell you if Marty makes it back in the next 10 minutes, back on, we will break in to a older program, and we apologize for this. We know we haven't had a show in a couple of, I don't know, what's it been, 2 weeks, Nick?
Yeah, it must be, yeah.
Yeah,
all right. Last show was the one we recorded with Pete Williams.
Yep. All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and roll what we call our classic set, and hopefully we will we will see you shortly, or you will hear us shortly. Who knows? All right, say goodnight, Nick.
As you probably know,
good night, everybody.
FM is an all-volunteer organization, and while we produce a number of wonderful live programs like Space Pirate Radio, York Universe, First Light, and the Event Horizon, once in a while we just need a night off. So rather than going live, we're going to go with a classic presentation. We hope you enjoy this program from our archives, and thanks for listening to the Voice of Astronomy, around the world and across the known universe. From astronomy.fm, this is AFM Radio.
Hi, this is Tavi Greiner, Astronomy.fm's Vice President of Communications. If you enjoy our programming, please let us know with a donation to astronomy.fm/donate. We really do rely on your support, and it's true. Every little bit counts.
AFM.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
The curtain of night is drawn back. The telescopes are trained. The domes are open. The audience is set. Now, step into the Event Horizon.
4, 3.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Event Horizon radio program here on astronomy.fm radio. That means it is another Friday night, and this one happens to be August the 18th, 2017. Universal time, that would put it at 1 o'clock in the morning, August the 19th, 2017, Saturday morning. So that means this part of the broadcast is live, and if it happens to be your time right now and you're listening to us live, don't forget, come on over to the chat room where all the cool kids are hanging out.
Yes, and good evening, everybody. It's me, Nick Yvette. And Marty.
Yep. The warm
You're kind of broken up on me.
3, live.
Okay, I heard you a little bit, but you're breaking up. If you could type a message to us.
I think he said we're live.
We're live. Okay.
Okay, chat room. Can you hear us live? This is Nick Yvette, and Marty's got back to us. Say hello, Marty.
Hello, Marty, Nick. I got to get back.
Whoa!
I got to get back into
that was a very bright flash of lightning.
What was it? Oh, okay.
Yes, Evil Spock says he can hear us live. Well, welcome to the live show. Obviously, we've only got about 45 minutes left, but we are going to do our best to fill it. I did actually look for some stories. So whilst Marty is getting himself back into the chat room, I'm going to get cracking up with a story. So, first one I found today from the BBC. It's probably about 10 hours old, even if that. So there you go. The link is in the chat room. And so when flying to Mars is your day job. So the young lady on the picture says that as a kid she never really thought there was a job where you could work on spacecraft. And so Dr. Farah Alabai is now based at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and now works on the InSight mission, which lifted off to Mars in 2018. Yeah, you're in chat, Marty. We see you in chat.
Yes, I am in chat. How nice.
Now, the great idea is that it aims to land on the planet in November of this year and have a look inside. It's going to be a look inside of Mars. Mm-hmm. It's going to take the internal temperature of Mars, and it's going to listen for Mars quakes to learn more about how our nearest neighbor was formed. Now, halfway to the red planet and running to a Mars day rather than an Earth day, InSight is actually looked after by a dedicated team who regularly check in with the spacecraft on this long journey, including Dr. Alabi. Now, she actually shared a day at her job with the BBC. So, as she puts it, she said it's kind of weird. We're on our way to Mars. It's really boring, but that's the way you want it to be because everything's going fine. The spacecraft's behaving, and really, when it gets exciting, is when you don't. That is not what you want the mission to be doing.
That's right.
So it's, as she points out, it's every engineer's job to kind of worry because there's always things you never imagined could happen. We all remember Galileo and some of the problems we had with that. And the fact that suddenly we had to space junk, comets. Yes, we all remember having to retreat all the Mars orbiters to the far side of Mars for a comet to pass by, which we thought might even impact on Mars. It did graze the atmosphere, but that was about it. So, of course, every engineer's nightmare is when things are getting really exciting, it means things are going wrong, and then they've got to start dreaming up exotic ways to upload, update, reboot, and maybe get the spacecraft working. And
not to mention upgrade your resume.
Yeah, because you could be out of a job in 2 days' time.
That's right.
Now, I know that I seem to remember Alan Stern saying that with the New Horizons probe, that they actually had that problem. They're 3/4 of the way across the solar system. They're beginning their approach to Pluto flyby. Nearly got it wrong, but I didn't. I'm just excited. We actually got a live show at last. But they suddenly found they're having issues with New Horizons. They couldn't get it to talk. They couldn't get the tests to run. So suddenly they had to start rewriting code like crazy. Upload it, hope that the upload was received, that the reboot worked. Luckily for us, well, we know it did because we all saw the spectacular pictures of Pluto, including that incredible heart-like image on the surface of Pluto. So, yeah, when things get like that, then you start worrying because, hey, you could be out of a job. And let's face it, if you actually read Alan Stern's book, he tells you just how difficult it was to get the mission going. And to be honest, JPL weren't exactly very happy because this was a bunch of new guys on the block who had got a really spectacular mission. They got it accepted in part of, I think it was the decadorial mission programming. And they weren't involved. JPL was not involved. And they didn't like it because the company that was involved in it had mostly been dealing with satellites which were looking at the Earth, looking at the climate, the sea, the ice, and everything else. And there's this new kid comes along, and suddenly they've got a prestigious space mission, and why aren't we on its name? And so of course in the end JPL obviously was finally involved. I don't think Alan's team was very happy about it because there was the risk that they were going to get shunted to one side. It didn't happen, which was good. But as I say, the job of being a payload systems engineer for a spacecraft that is well away from the Earth, it can't be brought home, it can't be fixed because we ain't got a space shuttle anymore. We don't have a way of getting our astronauts to the probe. We can't do a Hubble on it, and it's got to be basically then it's going to be okay. We got to figure something out that's software orientated, and hopefully it will work. So far so good. They're saying that everything is nice and quiet, everything's doing its job, and hopefully, actually it's not that long really till November anyway. Really, but we're halfway through August. Yeah. Yep. So then there's just a few months and it should be there, and it should actually start to bring us some new science. This is going to be an interesting time. We have never ever taken the temperature of the Martian rocks and crust. We've never peered deeper and tried to figure out what exactly is going on. So it's going to be it's definitely a milestone mission, because if it tells us information that about stuff that's there, maybe it would make manned Mars even quicker to happen. And certainly if the results tell us that there's all the stuff we need to make a colony feasible, then maybe we'll actually get to Mars and have maybe a limited colony. It's going to be basically technicians and scientists, no civilians yet. Maybe 100 years down the road, we'll get civilians going to Mars to become the new Martians.
I'd call it a research station than a colony.
Yeah, it'd probably be better more apt description. Yeah, research station, because that's what it's going to be. And if the research station can look after itself and not have to do with the Martian, aka live on spuds.
We won't describe the fertilizer.
Well, it's just a time and tried tradition.
One thing that could be interesting would be to put down an unmanned research station. You know, especially if they could, you could get multiple units robotically, link them together, and grow it into a bigger piece of equipment, and just kind of let it run on automatic. You know, if it's possible to put some kind of automatic running greenhouse on there, stuff like that. Basically, just get the whole thing working.
Yeah.
Even have robots that go out the doors and back in the doors and stuff like that, just to see how bad the dust affects equipment and screws up stuff like that. So it would be interesting to have an unmanned research station operating successfully for, let's say, a year, and then bring people to it.
Well, the great thing about that, Marty, is that by having the basic equipment there, it's less you've got to haul into orbit, unless you've got to send with the plus humans, plus food, plus water.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets there, it sets up. They then have a habitat pretty much ready for them.
Well, yeah, so I was thinking having a human habitat research station active for a year before you actually send people there.
So, yeah, let's hope.
If it's possible.
Yeah, well, space missions like this one are really going to help us, because one of the important things we're going to need is a source of energy on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And if it...
Solar is doable on the planet.
It's doable,
it's weak, but it's doable.
It's not dependable because of the Martian dust storms.
Right.
So
if
you can
it could be dependable, but
geothermal.
You'd have to have adequate storage batteries to last.
Storage batteries.
Yes.
Maybe this probe will tell us what the geothermal possibilities are like. We have to accept the fact that the Martian core is pretty much dead.
Yeah.
There's no magnetic field to speak of, which is why the Martian atmosphere is being stripped so quickly into space. So, Mars, 24 hours, 39 minutes is the average day. InSight is on a 6 months travel time from Earth to its landing site. Slightly greater than 50% of attempted landings have been successful. And so far, robots are its only known inhabitants. So, as I say, having a system that can expand us, humans. What an indomitable species Homo sapiens have become. If you seriously think about it, when you consider how long the short period from the first flight of an aircraft to space flight,
or even
still alive for Apollo.
Even if you want to add that, Earth circumnavigation.
Yeah.
That only goes back 400 years, and that's hardly anything compared to at least human history.
Yeah, but the important thing really is, first we learn to fly, and in a very, very short time, we learn to travel beyond the atmosphere.
Right.
One of the Wright brothers was actually interviewed by Patrick Moore on how he felt about the fact they did the first manned flight successfully, and then he was alive to see man leave the Earth and go into space. And I really, really wish I could find that interview, because it apparently, from everything I've heard, it was one corker of an interview.
That'd be a good one to listen to.
It would be, yeah. Starstorm is doing research.
I say that's a Starstorm project, I think, yes.
But as I say, the Red Planet is potentially our best opportunity for a manned research station somewhere else other than the moon.
Mm-hmm.
That, by building on the moon, then we build on Mars. Then we can look to go to the Galilean system. Then after the Galilean system, we can go to the Saturnian system, and then eventually explore beyond into the far reaches of the outer solar system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the important thing is, yeah, Glenn, you're quite right. War does that. A lot of the innovations that got us to Apollo was due to the First World War, the Second World War, Korea, Vietnam, etc.
Cold War.
The Cold War, yeah. But the important thing is we've taken the technology and we've harnessed it in a peaceful manner.
Yep.
By taking all the prior technologies to build up, we took an ICBM and we used it to put man into low Earth orbit for the first time. That was using Titan Gemini missiles. They were actually designed to deliver nuclear warheads, but we used them to launch a space capsule, initially for a very short duration space flight, and then longer and longer until we started the long haul to Apollo. So going from a weapon of war to Apollo in a very, very short time. So in some respects, we have as I said, we have taken the swords and beaten them into plowshares. Because, yeah, the Soviets use SV-7 launchers to put satellites into orbit now. It's the only thing they can actually use them for. So it's turning something designed for mass destruction into something that's actually got a peaceful and useful use. And of course, obviously, the space race is hotting up again. India has joined the Space Club. China has definitely joined the Manned Space Mission Club, which previously just America and Russia. And fairly soon, I really think in the next couple of years, India is going to join that club. Now, Musk has gotten his contract to use heavy Falcons to put a man in orbit.
8 interviews.
She's found 8 interviews. Now, I think it's either a interview. Is it with Wilbur or Orville Wright?
No, it's Neil Armstrong.
Okay.
It's the only thing I could find.
So the only interview online is with Neil Armstrong. And I can't remember if it was Wilbur or Orville Wright that he actually interviewed for the Sky at Night. Yeah, we did harvest the Nazi World War II V2 weapons. So did the Russians.
Yep.
But we actually got the better scientists. We actually got the people who were designing the V2s in the first place. And let's face it, Werner von Braun has always been upfront with the fact his dream and desire was to go to the moon. It's just, unfortunately, his designs got subverted and used for war initially. As the Allies pushed the Germans back, we captured their technology. But at the end of the day, we used V2s ourselves here in the US to push forward, to get Titan, to get Gemini, and finally to get Apollo. V2s made very good sounding rockets when they actually worked. And actually, the ironic thing is, the V2 engine is using hydrogen peroxide, and it's it's one of the most efficient rocket engines going. It's very fuel intensive, but by gosh, it burns hot, and it can shift a fair bit of weight.
Was hydrogen peroxide just the oxidizer, or the fuel that had to have more oxidizer added to it?
Okay, just 1 second. I'm just trying to pull up on the V2 engine right now.
Okay.
Mark's not in the audience tonight. I know that if Bat Projects was here, he would have that, and I'm sure that Starstorm's looking for it as well. Okay. V2 engine.
Fuel. Type in V2 engine fuel.
I'm going to go for rocket engine.
While you're looking up that, I wanted to mention something about opportunity on Mars, since we're kind of talking about Mars. Opportunity is still not back on because the dust storm basically eliminated the amount of sunlight needed to recharge its battery. So it basically kind of shut down to minimal systems, and looks like the dust storms are actually starting to dissipate a bit. So they're waiting for the correct percentage of clearness of the sunlight to get to an acceptable level before they try recharging its batteries and getting it working again. So they're still working on getting Opportunity back running, but they haven't had enough sunlight yet. The ratings of the sunlight has not been high enough because of the dust to get them to charge their batteries and try it yet. But I think it's still going, still alive, and still capable of getting recharged and back online again. So still working on that. It is a long dust storm.
Okay, so according to this,
okay.
The actual technical name for the V2 was the A4, and it used a 74% ethanol water mix and LOX, liquid oxygen, for oxidizer.
Ethanol, that's alcohol.
Yeah, so the fuel and oxidizer pumps were driven by a steam turbine, and the steam was produced by concentrated hydrogen peroxide with sodium permanganate catalyst. So basically, both the alcohol and oxygen tanks were an aluminium magnesium alloy. So when you're thinking that the combustion burner reached a temperature of 2,500 to 2,700 Celsius, that is 4,530 to 4,890 Fahrenheit.
That's pretty hot.
Yeah, so it's a regenerative cooling that heated the fuel and cooled the combustion chamber. So the alcohol fuel was pumped alongside the double wall of the main combustion burner.
Right.
And that was the same type of technology that the Apollo missions used. The fabulous F1 engine.
I think most of the liquid fuel engines do that. They use the cones to dual purpose, heat up the fuel to get to a higher temperature, and they also use it to the cool fuel to keep the cone from melting down.
So as I said, the next thing I'm going to look up is the F1 engine, because since we're talking about Apollo technology, it would be wrong of us not to actually go there. Okay, so it was a Rocketdyne F1 rocket engine, and it was considered the mightiest rocket engine in the world. So there's 5 F1 engines in the S1 SIC first stage, which was the main launch vehicle of the Apollo program. It still remains the most powerful single combustion chamber liquid propellant ever developed. So when you think about it, this is a liquid. The shuttle used a combination of liquid and solid, and it was
dangerous together.
Exactly. And as we found out the hard way, because of the O-rings denaturizing because of the cold and rupturing, allowed the heat to get to the solid propellant faster, which blew up. So anyway, looking at this, I'm going to put a link into the F1 engine. It is an incredible piece of technology, and it shows you how important it is. Steve Bezos spent millions to recover one from the Atlantic Ocean, bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, so this was actually started as the E1. In static firing, it was seen as a technological dead end and abandoned for the larger, more powerful F1 engine. Now, the Air Force developed the F1, but abandoned it because there was no requirement for such a huge engine. But the recently created NASA appreciated the fact that this engine had so much power that they contracted Rocketdyne to complete the development. Test firings of the F1 components have been performed as early as 1957. The full static firing of a full-stage developmental F1 was on March 1959, and the first one was delivered to NASA in October 1963. And by December 1964, the F1 had completed the flight rating tests, and obviously the testing continued through 1965. Okay. I see that my good mate Paul is at RAF Kenley. It's very cloudy, but
Oh, nice.
they're listening to Perseids and playing with robotic scopes. That's one way to do it. If you've got clouds, you go online.
Yeah. Let's go to Perseids. Oh, quick question, Nick. Sorry, because I had trouble getting started here. Are we doing a station break somewhere in between, or are we going to the top of the hour? Do you know?
Let's do a station break.
Do a station break? All right. Well, then we can get it, edited in anywhere. So let's do a little station break. Go ahead, Nick.
You are listening to the Event Horizon. It is 1:37 Universal Time, which is 9:37 Eastern Daylight Time. And you're listening to the Event Horizon with Nick Yvetts and Marty Coons. And Starstorm is in the chat room with us.
That's right. Or we'll just say that we're halfway through our program now.
Yeah.
And that could get slipped in anywhere.
Now, I'm going to chuck a link into the chat room, because this just shows you the size of these engines. In fact, the size of just one of these engines. Now,
that's the J engines, is it?
That is the F1 engine on
F1
the first
engines?
stage.
First stage of the what? Saturn V?
Saturn V, yeah.
Okay, yep, I've seen those.
Yeah, so that is Werner von Braun standing right next to an F1 engine.
Mm-hmm.
So actually a completed first stage. So when you compare the size of the man to the actual size of that nozzle, it's pretty impressive. It's huge. If you live in the state of New York, you know exactly where I nicked that one from. Oh yeah, he's in Florida too, isn't he?
I have been down to Florida, yes, and I have been up pretty close to those engines. I can't remember if I think they were up in the air though, so you can only get so close to them.
Yeah.
But you get the scale definitely by standing right next to them.
This is clearly on a transporter at the U.S. Rocket and Space Center.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, well, that's a good. That is a very good. Okay, so Spock is saying in our chat room they're using radio signals to listen to pings of meteors hitting a radar signal from a French radar station.
Oh, nice.
That's one way to listen to the Perseids. If you're a radio amateur like me, you can just point your antenna at the radiant and then listen for perhaps somebody keying up a brief snatch of conversation from a 2-meter signal, or you can tune your FM radio to a distant FM station you can't normally get. And
so basically a blank space between the regular local stations.
Yeah. So then you'll hear a brief piece of signal, maybe a quick piece of music or a quick piece of speech. That is the FM radio signal bouncing off the ionized trail from a meteor in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Perseid meteors, did you see any?
I'm clouded.
You were clouded out?
Yeah, I'm clouded out. I still am.
Oh, are you really?
When I look out the door, every now and again, I'm seeing flashes of lightning.
Mm-hmm. Right now I've got cloudy and rainy, but Saturday, we're supposed to have a totally clear weekend, but we didn't. We had storms rolling through a lot. But Saturday evening was nice and clear. I went up to the cottage on the lake and got the rowboat out, rowed out to the middle of the lake, and started looking around. Started looking a little early, maybe about an hour after sunset, something like that, and caught a couple little ones, and then some big, slow fireballs roll through. I saw a total about a dozen. I couldn't step all night because, unfortunately, I scheduled myself to work Monday morning. That was stupid. Because I should have said, okay, no, I'll just work Tuesday. I won't work Monday because I would have stayed up later. So I stayed up till I stayed there observing till about midnight and then got home about 1 or so. So it was late enough for me. But I saw about a dozen total. Most of them early. Most of them the big ones about 11 o'clock in the evening. And they were so slow I could actually see one of them split in two. One was the smoke trail was brighter than the meteor, so it must have caught some sunlight or something like that. So, but pretty impressive. The
two really big ones I saw were impressive, and one other fireball was pretty nice. And I don't know what the rest of the reports were for after midnight when they were supposed to peak.
Now, I just chucked a link into the chat room. Now, it's entitled 100 Women Who Sewed for NASA, as in S-E-W, not S-O-W. And it's a story about the women who are seamstresses who, without most of NASA's key missions, would never have left the ground. So one of them is Leanne Palm, who's a literal tailor to the stars. She works at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory's SHIELD shop to create thermal blankets, which is essential for any spacecraft leaving Earth. It doesn't sound glamorous, but she does work with couture materials. The Cassini mission was her first project at NASA, which went to Saturn, cloaked in a very fine golden insulation for durability over the 19-year mission. Now, believe it or not, your shoes have more in common with interplanetary spacecraft than you might think. Thermal blankets are created on the same industrial sewing machines as football, and when related to the spacecraft, they don't become loose during launch. And there's actually some pictures of some of the things that have been created with this material on there. Now, believe it or not, she also ended up, her first job at the JPL was in 1994, was on the cabling team for the Cassini mission, Saturn. The intricate job of connecting all the separate scientific instruments on the spacecraft to a central power supply was very demanding. It took her team 3 years. Just like a sewing factory is mostly women, cabling these days is also mostly women because they're very good with their hands, she says. And believe it or not, NASA hires women with sewing experience for this reason. Their engineers couldn't figure out how to work with Teflon, you know, the non-stick material that coats many of your saucepans and these days. They were at a total loss. And this lady suggested that folding the edge of the material and then sewing like a hem as she would a shirt at home. Believe it or not, it actually worked. And so she's the latest in a long line of women whose crafting skills have been vital to NASA. During the Apollo program, which sent the first humans to the moon, employees at defense contractor Raytheon were employed to weave the software for the spacecraft. Now, believe it or not, they were actually threading copper wires through tiny magnetic loops to create the individual ones and zeros of machine code or programming code. It's a very time-consuming job and a very precise process. Now, and it is so small and very petite that in a lot of cases, seamstresses were the only people that could do this. Similarly, the seamstresses of the lingerie brand Playtex, they pioneered new sewing techniques to create the Apollo spacesuits. So when you think about it, they're working to unprecedented levels of precision. They're working late into the night, and their innovations made human spaceflight possible. Without what these people at Playtex could do, we would not have had the spacesuits we have today. And it's much like the hidden figures at NASA's aeronautics research facilities. These stories do go untold, which is really, really sad. Now, for Leanne herself, the work itself is a dream come true. She never believed as a child that it would be nice to touch one of the stars that she saw in the sky. But she came to the US after the fall of Saigon. She started making shirts and blouses and everything and selling them to keep her family fed and housed. And eventually she ended up at NASA. So this really does go to show what can become of the most humble talents. And when you think that we are going to have to create a whole new spacesuit technology for humans to get out on the Martian surface, the bulky spacesuits we use today for the ISS, for the shuttle, and for Apollo just simply will not be suitable for Mars.
Too heavy. Exactly. Yeah. The moon had 1/6 gravity, so those suits were about 300 pounds on Earth, and what's that make it? 50 pounds on the moon. So mostly easily enough to lug around 50 pounds. Not that bad, but 300-pound spacesuit on Mars weighs 150 pounds plus your weight.
So yeah, that gets way too heavy. So that's definitely not going to work.
Not everybody's built like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm. Well, really big people like that, at least like in submarines, or they don't want really big people because they use up too much oxygen and other supplies.
And take up space.
And take up space too, yes. And way more, and they're basically bigger cargo, so that's not good. So you'd probably want more petite people. You make a smaller suit, but still got to be lightweight for more, smaller person too. So the kind of trade-offs that ways.
Okay, so I found another story. This is going back to yesterday. The earliest galaxies have been found on our cosmic doorstep. So I put the link in the chat room.
Okay.
This is from the BBC, and some of the earliest galaxies to form in the universe are really sitting on our cosmic doorstep, according to a study. These faint objects close to the Milky Way could be more than 13 billion years old. And this is what researchers from the universities of Durham and Harvard explain. They formed upwards of 100 million years after the Big Bang and contain some of the first stars to light up the cosmos. Now, these findings are published in the Astrophysical Journal. Now, our own galaxy, the Milky Way, is one of billions out there in the universe. These sprawling cosmic neighborhoods are filled with stars and planets formed from many of the smaller building blocks, such as these galaxies, when these galaxies collided and merged. So you only have to wonder what's going to happen when the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy do actually finally merge, go through another coalescence. Mm-hmm. This is going to, in a lot of cases, spark a whole new bunch of stars. Mm-hmm. And eventually those stars, if they have enough material around them, are going to form a planetary system. So mm-hmm. that there is the potential, I forget how many million years in the future this is going to be, for a very rapid spurt of star forming. We're already seeing that, of course, in the Orion Nebula with the trapezium. Mm-hmm. That is a current hotspot of star formation. We're seeing that in the Eagle Nebula. There is a stellar nursery. It's one of the famous Eagle's Claw. They are in the iconic picture. So, of course, finding some of these very first galaxies is the astronomical equivalent of finding the remains of the very first humans that inhabited the Earth in what is now Eastern Africa, in the Great Rift Valley. So it's kind of like finding the Lucy of galaxies. Mm-hmm. It is very exciting. We're actually looking further and further back into history, into time. Mm-hmm. And the instruments we have today, when you compare them to the instruments of the Victorians, to the instruments of Herschel alone, again, this is somewhere we have taken a huge technological stride. Yeah, we can even use radio telescopes to look back and map parts of the sky which are hidden from us because of dust. That is how we're able to see and map the area of Sagittarius A, the massive black hole in the center of our galaxy. Yeah, exactly, just like Jodrell Bank is doing on a regular basis as part of the E. Merlin network. Mm-hmm.
I had to mention something about Jupiter tonight for you planetary observers. Jupiter's moons are doing like everything from 13 hours universal time to 20 hours universal time. That's only 7-hour span. There is about a dozen Jupiter moon events happening within that span, from eclipses, transits, occultations. Like there's literally a dozen events happening with Jupiter's moons between 13 hours universal time and 20 hours universal time. So you Jupiter observers like to see stuff happening with the moon. You gotta check it out tonight. Unfortunately, that's like the opposite side of the Earth from the U.S. So we're not going to get too much of that stuff tonight. But everybody else, like, you get a lot of interesting events. Go to projectpluto.com and it'll show you what the events are happening. Some interesting ones too. Some things happening within just a few minutes of each other, like 2 objects coming out of eclipse within a few minutes. That's kind of cool. Go ahead.
One thing I want to say is, as most people are aware, our primary server is currently down at the moment.
Mhm.
So what I am doing is when we get the actual the shows finished, our radio producer Rob is giving me the audio of the shows, and I'm actually putting them up on YouTube, and I am posting them on the AFM Facebook page. So
Okay.
you'll have the links, and you'll be able to. I'm sorry, I apologize. It's the most boring, repetitive graphic there is,
Mhm.
but it means if you want to go and listen to the show over and over again, or you want to share it with somebody, you can share the YouTube link, and that way it's there and people can access it. We do hope very soon. I'm not going to say it's going to be next week or next, maybe the end of the month or maybe next month. We hope to have our website back up eventually.
In full force.
In full force. So at the moment, I am putting up these YouTube links through my YouTube account. So just bear with us. We are trying to get the shows out to you, and the links as well. Okay.
A little bit of sky stuff. We've got about 8 minutes left to go.
Yeah.
Venus is at greatest elongation tonight, 46 degrees east of the sun. Now, I've noticed something about Venus. So it was like a couple months ago, it was actually easier to see, even though it was a little closer to the sun, because the angle of the ecliptic has changed. At least for us here in the northern hemisphere, it's actually gotten lower. So a few months ago, when Venus was quite prominent for us in the northern hemisphere here, the ecliptic angle was fairly high up. So that meant Venus was fairly high up, even though it was closer to the sun. And actually, Venus is beginning more towards the horizon, but farther away from the sun. So we've got greatest elongation, but it's actually nearer the horizon for us right now. So I was wondering, like, why have I not been seeing Venus? I didn't think we'd passed greatest elongation and we'd start heading back, around towards the front of the sun or anything like that. So that's what the deal was. We just hit greatest elongation, but the angle of the ecliptic for us here in the north is fairly low to our western horizon. It's been making different. It's actually been disappearing behind the buildings around where I observed. I used to be able to observe it above the buildings, but now it's below the line of the buildings.
But as I say, if you can get out and see it, then please do, because you won't be disappointed.
Southern Hemisphere observers got really great view right now of Venus, and as it starts swinging around the sun and getting heading back towards the sun, it's actually going to pass more or less on the Earth side of the sun, if you want to say, but not directly in front of it. And you'll see it starting to grow larger and more of a crescent shape, and that's when it's really cool to watch. When Venus is a huge, huge crescent.
Now, of course, the other thing about Venus is it does show distinct phases, and there's the ashen light to look for as well, and image. So it is really worth getting your telescope, and I guess you could try and do it with binoculars, but do be careful, because there are times that as Venus is setting, the sun is rising, and we do not really want you looking at the sun through your binoculars or telescopes.
Nope. Can't have Venus setting and the sun rising.
The last time I saw Venus, it was in the morning.
Well, then Venus would have risen first. Venus would be rising, and then the sun would be rising.
Okay, thank you, Marty. It's been a long week. Okay,
it's been a long week. Yes.
Yeah, and like I'm in a sauna at the minute.
Yeah, and of course I had my computer glitch up for the first 15 minutes of the show, so just another one of those nights because we just had an update and that messed up my system a little bit. So.
Yeah, I tend to get these updates midweek at the moment for some reason.
Nice.
I came back this evening and my computer had been updated by Windows.
Sunspot on the sun right now, small one, really small, but it's definitely there, and we've got a coronal hole right now, so we're getting some pretty good streams of solar wind coming out. So high latitude observers start looking for some aurora.
You're in aurora heaven.
Yes.
I'm told that they've actually, one of the Icelanders has actually had their first sighting already. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm in one of the Icelandic Aurora Hunters group on Facebook.
Cool.
And It's interesting. Some of the pictures are great. Some of the folks there are talking about setting up a camera like the Norwegian one is, which would be really, really nice, because that gives a lot more people the chance to log into. Because unfortunately, when everybody starts piling into these streams, the sheer bandwidth that starts to be taken shuts them down. So if there's another station doing it, even better.
Yep. Got an article here. New galaxy cluster recently discovered, and it's not that far away. And how did that happen? Because let me put the link into our chat room here. Because it has right in the middle of it a super bright quasar. Quasar designated PKS 1353-341. Super bright. In fact, it basically was shining so much of them, you just generally looking at part of the sky. That's all they saw. But turns out it's actually the center of a giant galaxy cluster, about 2.5 billion light years away from the Earth. So
they're talking about 690 trillion suns. And for comparison, the Milky Way weighs in at about 400 billion.
Yep. So, what? 1,000 times more massive than our solar.
So basically, what's happening here is this is a short-lived phase that some clusters go through, because what's happened is the central black hole has had a quick meal. It's gobbled up some stars and some dust and stuff, and then it gets very, very bright and it fades away.
Yep.
Now, as I say, it does happen. And thankfully, because of the way we sit in our galaxy, should our black hole decide to have a meal, we are fairly safe, because the jets are pointing well away from us. But they would certainly, in radio, an X-ray be very, very, very bright.
Yes, indeed. Cool, lots of stuff happening. Still one little meteor shower happening right now. It peaks on the about today, the 17th. It's the Beta Hydrucids from the constellation of Hydra. So if you're out there and you still see some coming from the direction of Hydra, that is a meteor shower. It's less than 1 an hour. So if you just happen to catch one, if you trace it back to Hydra, yep, that is an actual meteor shower happening right now.
Now,
it's a small one though.
One other thing is the British Astronomical Society Meteor section is looking for people to sign up, not only for visual observations, but to set up cameras. So if you're interested, go along and give the director, Dr. John Mason, your name, and I'm sure he'll be interested. Now, I'm just paying attention to the time, so...
Just about that time.
Captain Savick, this is the away team. 3 of us to beam up. We're coming home.
Well, we're heading out. Quick note, Giacobini's Zinner, the comet, it will be passing by the star Capella in a couple of weeks, so that'll make a really good marker and fairly easy for us to see it. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening in tonight. Appreciate it, and thanks everybody in the chat room. So, time for us to head out. Good night, all.
Energize.
We hope that you've enjoyed this program from AFM Radio, the broadcast service of Astronomy.fm. This program has been released under Creative Commons license. Please contact us for details. You may find more of our AFM original programs on our website. It's really easy to find us. We are Astronomy.fm. You may also find us in the iTunes radio listings near the top of the News Talk section, and also as an iTunes podcast selection. We'd love to hear your comments. Please email us at radio@astronomy.fm. Thanks so much for being part of the voice of astronomy around the world and across the known universe. This is Astronomy.fm Radio.
Hi, this is Tavi Greiner, Astronomy.fm's Vice President of Communications. If you enjoy our programming, please let us know with a donation to astronomy.fm/donate. We really do rely on your support, and it's true, every little bit counts.
AFM. There I was, doing my thing. And all of a sudden,